Hello and welcome to another episode of the Creating Belonging podcast. Today I have with me Kendra LaFleur. Kendra, if you wouldn't mind, introduce yourself in your own words.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Justin, for inviting me to this episode of your podcast. I'm very excited to do this with you. So my name is Kendra LaFleur. I am a partner for Carricks and Ingram. I live in Atlanta, Georgia with my husband and our 3 children.
Kendra and I met, I spoke at her firm this winter, I guess it was. It didn't feel like winter because we were in New Orleans.
I know, I agreed.
To me, that's not winter. But yeah, so we met there, really enjoyed meeting you, and then kind of had a few conversations since then, and really excited to get in and speak with you today in the podcast. To ground us in the conversation, I'd love to hear, as most of our listeners are going to be on audio, what identities would you like to share that kind of may come up in your stories to help kind of ground us?
I am a Black woman. I would say, I shouldn't say young. Maybe, can I say upper young? I want to hold on to the young part for as long as I can. So
yes, do it.
So I am 34 and I am a heterosexual Christian. That would be me summed up in a nutshell.
Great. Well, thank you, Kendra. So I understand you have read the book, dug in, and have been thinking.
Great job, by the way. Let's give you some credit for that. It's such a good book.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I swear this, I don't mean for this podcast to be like it is about the book, right? But like, I have so many people like, oh my gosh, it's so great. I love it. And I swear this isn't just about like me puffing up my ego.
Sure. No. I got it.
Thank you, Kendra. So I'd love to hear, let's just dig in. And, can you think of any stories from your past that kind of related back to the model, or what stories came up for you as you were reading?
I guess I resonated with, I think it really minimizing. I think, so for me, I'm a Black woman, as I mentioned earlier, and I'm in a corporate America. And so I went to high school, a very diverse high school. My college was very diverse in various ways, right? Not just things that you can see, just holistically very diverse. But when I got into corporate America, it was kind of it was different, It was new for me. I wasn't used to being the only one of me in a certain amount of space. So that was kind of, I didn't know how to, I wouldn't say I wouldn't know how to. I had to get comfortable with being myself and somewhat adapting. I love who I am, so I don't like to necessarily code switch. So I kind of had to muddy through that a little bit. And so I was I'm an extrovert. Okay, let's just be honest. I am an extrovert. But you have to kind of learn the lay of the land. And so I had to learn how to be Kendra, but in a corporate setting, and be okay with being the only Kendra in the room, if that makes sense.
So I love that you brought up code switching. I think, code switching comes up a lot when we talk about the minimizing area of the model, because there's, a lot of overlap there. The other thing that I've been kind of thinking about how to be Kendra in the corporate world, I was having a conversation with, I'm trying to remember when it was now, about the idea of professionalism and kind of how professionalism is, in a way, there are elements of structural oppression in professionalism. You need to conform to XYZ thing. I'm curious how that hits you. Like when you think about your experience in finding Kendra in the corporate world, what do you like? How does the word professionalism bump up against you?
So I have a really good example. It's not directly for me, but it is something that I was a part of the conversation. So I do a lot of recruiting with my firm. And so one of our candidates, top candidates, smart, bright, she's just amazing, but she is a Black female. And so when she was going through the process, she ended up coming with our firm. And so when we talked about it, because there's so many great firms out there. And so we kind of like to know, what did we do right? How did we get you here? And one of the things that she said was, your recruiter, one of my colleagues, had her hair braided. And so hair is a big thing for Black women, certain hairstyles. And I know some people don't understand, but it's a complicated discussion, but there's certain hairstyles that aren't seen as professional. And so for her, when she saw that there was a professional trying to recruit her with the hairstyle that she didn't necessarily think would be okay, but clearly it was, but it just resonated with her. And she just felt like, okay, I can kind of be myself because it's okay in your space, like, because you have this hairstyle and I know that I can wear that hairstyle and it won't be an issue. Because the fact of the matter is, even something as little as hair, is that a professional hairstyle or is it not? It's hair, you know what I mean? And that's kind of an interesting topic, and we won't go off on a tangent, but hair is a big thing for Black women trying to navigate that space.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. And I think, what you're touching on is something that has actually come up in several episodes now, is this idea of representation. When we can see ourselves in that community, like if, for example, we're interviewing at an organization and we see ourselves, we're more comfortable going there.
Exactly right.
So I love that. I love that idea. And I think it's when I think of professionalism, I don't often think of hair necessarily, but it is something that is real and relevant. So let's go back to finding Kendra in the corporate world. Tell me more about that and how you got to be, because I'm assuming, and I think, in the discussions we've had, like, you've moved out of minimizing into belonging. So tell me about that journey.
I'm an accountant, so I'm a CPA. And so when I entered this profession, I didn't realize how underrepresented minorities were, because my whole life I had been around diverse populations, grade school, college, like my friend group, just very, very diverse populations. And so when I entered like the accounting profession, that's kind of when it hit me, like, many times I was the only African American or female in the room. It took a little bit of navigating. And so I'm fortunate enough in that I am an extrovert and I can talk and I'm comfortable with it and asking some of the difficult questions. For those who know me, who kind of know my story, I remember asking, we went to an event and there's a lot of professionals in the room. And so what I love about my firm, I've been here for 13 years. I've always felt included, right? So that's the difference, right? I have always felt like I was a part of the team. That's what mattered a lot. That's how I've been able to kind of navigate this profession. But we went to an event professional event for CPE. And I had asked one of my mentors, my friends, one of my partners, at that time I was a staff. And I said, am I the only Black person that works in this firm? And it's just asking, that's a tough question. And this is over lunch, right? So this is not even like we're in a setting where we can really like hone in. This is just like at lunch. But because of the relationship that I had with this partner then and really now, like it was a safe space. It was no judgment. It was just, I had observed something. And so I asked the question. And so we kind of talked about it. And then it kind of sparked more of a, okay, we need to be more intentional. Because if your network is only made up of this type of person, you'll never be diverse, right? So how do we intentionally reach out to Asians, Hispanics, people of color? Just how do you reach out to those? And so, we talked through some strategies. And since then, like the firm has implemented like resource groups, and we've just been more strategic because and you mentioned that a lot in your book, actually. It just makes economic sense. It just makes sense, because this is a business. And so it has been fun to kind of be a part of that transition, because I've been here for so long, to kind of see what it was and what it is now has just been amazing. And I have just been so blessed to kind of be a part of that transition.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. And I have a feeling that you've done a lot to help move that forward, which is amazing. I mean, in fact, I'm assuming you won't bring it up because I've known you as much as we've talked, I get you to be a little humble. and you were the first Black female to be promoted to partner within the firm, right?
So I came as an intern. So I was the first Black female to be promoted from like intern to partner. Yes, we do have another Black female here, but she merged in. She's amazing, but she merged in. So like she was already essentially a partner when she merged in. So yes, be true.
I love that you want to give her credit, but I think it's amazing that you navigated kind of within the organization from that intern level up to partner, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And I think it shows your influence in the organization,
right?
Which is really cool great.
It's that you talk about humility, like that's just how I was brought up to always like, I always see the floor. Like I give my opinions, but I never need all the hoops in the house and I don't need cheerleaders. Like I just never have needed that. But I was talking to one of my mentors and she explained to me, it's not about you wanting all this spotlight, but it's you showing that it can be done. Like you being an inspiration to someone else. And I had never really seen it in that point of view. I always thought about it as bragging and like, look what I've done, but it's really more of a, wow, she did it and I can do it too. And so as we have young women, young Black women, white women, green women, whomever, I'm a mother. So people who are having children, like, they're like, you can do it. I can do this because I've seen you do it too. And like, and I love that. Like, that's what I love. And so I've kind of been able to slowly pivot into like sharing more of my story for the sole purpose of like being an inspiration to somebody else. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, it goes back to that idea of representation, that you can be that representation for others.
That's exactly right, Justin.
Well, thank you for doing that. Another thing, kind of going back to, thinking about within your firm, creating greater diversity and representation across other identities. What hits me is that for some businesses, it's not as apparent to be representative of the population they serve. But I can think as a CPA firm, you're working with organizations that are owned and led by people of color, by Asians, by Hispanics, right? And so to have that representation across the organization, I think it also signals that, hey, this is an organization that might understand me. I'm curious kind of what thoughts you've had on that.
Yeah, that's so true, Justin. We've had really big companies. I won't say the company, but there was a company that went out for bid. So we had a few firms trying to get this work, but I think their CEO and the CFO were both females. That's what they wanted to see. They wanted to see female partners. They wanted to see women in leadership because that's what they wanted. They were adamant. I shouldn't call it, I guess that you could say feminist, because I kind of know who they were, but that's what they wanted to see. And so they didn't want to sit in a room full of men trying to pitch to them. And now I'm sure maybe even with your work, like that's part of like the proposal package. Tell me about your diversity and inclusion. What is your gender makeup? What is your race? Like they're just very forward with asking those questions. And so it's a part of the process now. And so I have definitely seen like that transition with people being more intentional and just very forward, to be quite frank, with how are you implementing this within your organization? Because that's what they want to see.
And it's great. I love that organizations are focusing on that and wanting to do business with organizations that focus on, ensuring they have diversity within the organization, because we know, research tells us that organizations perform better when they have those different perspectives.
That's right. That's what you said in here.
Kendra, if you're listening, Kendra is waving around my book, which I love. So I'd love to hear, what other stories came up for you as you were navigating the book and thinking about the model? What else came up for you reflecting on your own experience?
There was a line in your book that said, oh, forgive me if I get this wrong, but it was something like, you don't have to understand or really even agree to accept someone. And so I think that sometimes people get so caught up in well, no, I don't agree with that, or no, I can't have anything to like, you get so caught up into that. And that's not what it's about. The sense of belonging has nothing to do with you agreeing or understanding whatever the differences may be, right? Like it has nothing to do with that. It's just it's acceptance, right? And so I think that I think it was one of your opening things. People talk the talk. Everybody has this pledge, right? Everybody's so quick to put something on LinkedIn or put something on their website about this diversity initiative or whatever, but they're not walking the walk. And so I think that struggle, I keep reverting back to your book because it really is such a good book. There's a lot of aha moments in this book.
Thank
I'm
you.
like, okay, Justin, you better write this book. But I think that there were just, I think that's kind of where some of the issue lies, is that people feel like they almost have to be converted, right? So, and that's really not the case. You just have to accept them for who they are and understand that it's okay to have one of my favorite words is perspective. I love perspective. I love learning about people. My network is so robust. I am so passionate about networking. I will talk to anybody that'll talk back. You might not even have to talk back. If you just listen, I'll talk to you still. But I love people's perspective, and I love to see the world from a different angle. Like I just love all of that. And so I think that you really hit it. You touched on it spot on, is that people feel like they have to be converted or understand or agree to have a sense of belonging. That's really not the case.
Yeah, and I don't think I used this term in the book, but the term that I'm using now is actually that of radical acceptance. And radical acceptance meaning that I don't have to understand you to accept you.
That's right.
I don't have to understand you to accept that you're a human being that deserves my respect.
Right.
And acceptance that we can be in the same community together. And in the place of, workplaces, we can do good work together, right?
That's exactly right. And so when you asked me to identify myself, I said I'm Black, female, heterosexual, Christian, all of the things. And so, but some of my friends are homosexuals. One of my favorite colleagues, she's married to a woman, and I have great white girlfriends, and I have, it's just all of the things they pour into me. And I love that because I have so many aha moments all the time because I'm seeing things from a different lens, if you will. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is, you offered the word perspective. And I think that's what other people help us, give us different and new perspectives, that there are other experiences out there that aren't ours, but it doesn't mean that they're invalid experiences. I think that's when, the opposite, what I see a lot of, the opposite of radical acceptance is people not understanding someone else's experiences because that wasn't their experience.
Yes.
Like I've never lived through that. I don't understand that. So that can't be true for you.
Yes.
Right.
We all have that. We only have this one life. Like there's tons of things that we'll never experience, never have to experience, but that's okay. Like that's what makes perspective an amazing thing. Because now you can tell me about your experience. You had mentioned this in your book when you were kind of I think you had left school, you were just kind of navigating your life, trying to figure it all out. And you said, well, I had to grind, I had to work for it. But then I love the term that you said you didn't have the headwinds, right? Like you didn't have the headwinds that other people may have. And I love that because that kind of is like in tandem with perspective. Like you don't realize certain things, you know what I mean? Without kind of like expanding your network and learning about other people's journeys. I just love it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that story I talk about, for me, privilege wasn't something that I thought of.
Yep.
Like me, like growing up in rural Iowa, we didn't have, we weren't super well off, and I had to pay my own way through college, and so privilege was the furthest from what I thought of my life as.
Right.
And it took a long time to realize, like, you know what? I didn't have like everything handed to me, but also I didn't have things in my way. Like I talked about the headwinds. I didn't have the headwinds getting in my way either. And it took a while to understand that, others do have significant headwinds.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And there's so many of them, right? And so I think that sometimes people get so caught up in like gender, race, and sexuality, but like there's religious differences, right? There's socioeconomic differences. And so, and when I had talked about myself and like minimizing, I come from very humble beginnings. So my upbringing was very different than some of my colleagues. And so when they would reference things, I'm like, I can't relate to that, right? But I love hearing about it. I love to learn and like, well, how did that mold you into who you are today? Like I just love all of the underlying stories, but people's journeys are there's so many different ways to be different, to be diverse, not just necessarily what you see on the outside. And so sometimes people are like, we're not diverse at all. And I'm like, well, you can dive into that a little bit, right? Like what define diverse, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not just man and woman, like there's so many other ways.
Yeah, well, and I think that's where, individuals try to put a label of diverse on an individual.
Yes.
And by definition, an individual alone in a room cannot be diverse, no matter the identities of that individual. Diversity doesn't come into play until there's multiple individuals. And then it's when those multiple individuals are different, then that's where we have diversity. And we're all different in some way, right? But there are, varying levels of diversity that we can bring in.
For sure.
So yeah, and I get like very like, and I hate to use the word triggered because that sounds very strong, but when someone says like, let's bring in a diverse candidate, I'm like, that person on their own in a room is not diverse.
That is exactly right. I 100% agree with you on that. 100% agree with you on that.
Kendra, I really enjoyed having a conversation with you today. Thank you. Thank you for agreeing to join me on the podcast. And I am really glad that I met you and look forward to continuing to nurture our relationship. But before we go, I always like to give everyone an opportunity to promote. And this one, knowing how kind of humble you are, this one might be challenging for you, but I want to give you an opportunity to promote anything that you would like to promote, and or how can people find you or connect with you if they want to do so?
Sure. So you can connect me on LinkedIn. You can just search my name, Kendra LaFleur. There's a few of them, but I'm the one that's in Atlanta, Georgia. So that's me. And one of the things that are near and dear to my heart is Girls on the Run of Georgia, which is a not-for-profit organization that I sit on the board with. And so I just want to give them a shout out. So if you are even remotely interested in girls running, the nurturing of girls, anything to do with like that, even if you're not, I just encourage you to go visit Girls on the Run of Georgia or of Atlanta. I think you can get there the same way, but that's just a not-for-profit that is so amazing. And so anytime that I can talk about that one, I have to. So
I love it.
Justin, I appreciate that.
Yeah. I'd love to hear a little bit more. Tell me about Girls on the Run.
Yeah, so Girls on the Run is it's a national program, but I'm in Atlanta, so I sit on that board. And so what they do is they have this curriculum essentially for young girls that they kind of go through, where it teaches them about developing relationships, building confidence, and just all of the things that young girls go through, struggle with, and gives you a sense of community, all while exercising. And so you go through this whole program, and then at the very end of the program, you do a 5K. And so it's all of the girls around all of the different schools that participate in. You all meet up. In the fall, we were at where the Braves play at the Battery. And so we ran around the Battery as a 5K. And so it's a huge, it's like a festival almost. And so it's just so much fun. And so I just encourage anybody who's interested to go check it out. And you probably, if you're not in Atlanta, I'm pretty sure you have one nearby. So if you don't want to necessarily look into Georgia, I'm sure you have one in your respective states. So I encourage you to look it up.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that shout out. I'm definitely going to check it out. I love any program that gives youth an opportunity to create community and grow outside of kind of the traditional school system.
Exactly.
So that's great. I'm going to check it out. Thank you. Thank you so much. Again, it was great to have you on today. We'll talk soon. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Justin.